This is like a double header in a sorts, because in this video I'm gonna be talking about someone who I've been talked about for quite some time, and another person in this video is gonna be probably my first time actually talking about them, and of course that being Jaylen Brown. Now, before I get into this, I have to give a huge shout out to Dewan B over at Dewan B's on his channel. Shout out to him. If you haven't subscribed to his channel, please go and do so. The guy does amazing work, and he's a huge music historian, especially when it comes to Black American music. Because I was watching his live stream about this topic, and I said this is going to be very interesting, and I want to give my take on it, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I really didn't know too much about this. Now, I'm sure many people who are fans of Jaylen Brown or fans of the Celtics probably heard about this story, and y'all will be more familiar with it than I was, but I said let me go ahead and talk about it because it's very deceptive at the end of the day because of how Stephen A. Smith went about it. So a brief summary of what it is apparently there was this anonymous story that was fed to Stephen A. Smith about Jaylen Brown, and then Stephen A. Smith put it out there. Now mind you, this was anonymous. It was no factual backup behind this to actually say that this was true. And Stephen A. Smith, being the quote-unquote journalist that he is, he should have some kind of journalistic integrity, but he, in my opinion, is not a real journalist, and he definitely lacks integrity, especially when it comes to black male athletes. Decided to put that out there without fact-checking anything, and then it basically came back that that wasn't true. And then Jaylen Brown went on his show, as you can see by this thumbnail, well, not the thumbnail, but the screenshot, and confronted him about it. And I'm gonna also explain to you at the end why the title says part 1, because there is definitely going to be more to it than what y'all see in this video. But what I'm gonna do now is read this article and see what they're talking about. It says Jaylen Brown is getting ready to help the Boston Celtics defend their NBA championship, but not before defending himself from Stephen A. Smith's unnamed source. Earlier this year, during the NBA playoffs, ESPN First Take discussed whether Brown was the NBA's most underrated star. The conversation prompted an anonymous source to text Smith claiming Brown isn't underrated, he's just not liked. And that's is quoted as he's just not liked. Smith relayed the text on air, and Brown later challenged him to state his source. This week, Brown joined the First Take host on the Stephen A. Smith show, where he addressed the unnamed source controversy. Brown made it clear that he wasn't holding Smith accountable for the not liked claim, but did question his willingness to platform the unnamed source on First Take. So there you have it. So now we're getting into a little bit. We got a quote from this unnamed source, and to this day we still don't know who the source is. It's still an unnamed source that's not even reliable, but he took it and ran with it, and that says a lot about Stephen A. Smith, which lets people believe that Stephen A. Smith really doesn't like Jaylen Brown like that, for him to just take something from an unnamed source and run with it. So this could have just been a regular text from someone he does not know, and decided to just put it out there because about Jaylen Brown for whatever reason. Like, it was not backed up by anybody. It didn't come from a refutable place, but he put it out there as if it was. And I'm glad Jaylen Brown went and confronted him about it. Is quoted as saying, "I basically wanted to say to them that I think it's cowardice," Brown told Smith, regarding the source remaining anonymous. "I think historically unnamed sources have attacked some of our greats. I and we are not responsible for what they lack and design. Whether they think I'm marketable or not, I walk with God. I'm going to be me and stand with my community in this life and the next, and that's my journalistic integrity. Whether Brown is marketable can be debated, but whether he's marketed cannot. Brown is a superstar on one of the NBA's most popular teams, and he doesn't get the attention or endorsements you would expect for someone of that ilk. Because of that, Smith questioned why Brown considers it a negative when someone attempts to explain his lack of marketing opportunities." The fact that he even has to go that way, because now it's almost like he's trying to shift it back onto Jaylen Brown to try to take the heat off of himself. Stephen A. Smith is quoted as saying, he says, "You could critique someone's Jaylen is quoted as saying, you could critique someone's performance, but then also if you're attacking their character, they didn't just say I wasn't liked. They said I wasn't marketable. They said I was arrogant. I carried myself with a certain demeanor, and that line gets crossed between critiquing someone's performance, not liking them for whatever reason, and then attacking someone's character. I think journalistic integrity requires it to go both ways. I never had a chance to respond or defend myself. One, because they're never going to reveal themselves, and two, the damage is already done. So what I'm speaking to is the unnamed sources. Just as Brown doesn't hold Smith accountable for what was said in the report, Smith has reiterated that the anonymous source was not claiming that the Celtics star is unlikable. He was similarly just relaying information. Again, Stephen A. Smith, it's not the fact that the thing of what the person said, it's the fact that you put it out there and it was an unnamed source. That's the problem. And you're supposed to be a journalist, a sports journalist at that. Like, this is your realm. You're supposed to clear everything to make sure that this is a legit thing. And to find out who it's coming from. They said this is an unnamed source, so still to this day, they still don't know who put it out there, but because it said something about Jaylen Brown in a negative way, you still put it out there anyway. Now, I got a question for you, Stephen A. Smith. If it was a positive thing, would you have said it? Would you have put it on the air? Probably not. Smith also maintains that journalistic ethics says you shouldn't reveal a source, and that's fair. The problem, however, is that a journalist is supposed to clarify information and question the motives of any anonymous source. Maybe Smith did that when he read the disparaging report about Brown live on First Take, but in that moment, it certainly came across like Smith was just receiving and reading a text on live TV in real time without doing any sort of due diligence on the topic. That's exactly what it sounded like to me. But I'm not surprised because this is Stephen A. Smith's MO anyway. This is just how he gets down. It does not surprise me in the least bit that when he got that text, that man was probably smiling internally and couldn't wait to put it out there. Another question I would ask is, when did he get this text? Because I wouldn't be surprised if Stephen A. Smith probably got that text probably the night before and couldn't wait to talk about it the next day. It most likely wasn't even in the lineup of topics to discuss because they always go over in a briefing where they're going to talk about ahead of the show schedule. I bet this is something he got and couldn't wait to put on the air and couldn't wait to talk about. It most likely definitely wasn't even there because the text came directly to him. It didn't go to anybody else. It went straight to him, and he took it and ran with it and put it out there. No name source. Oh, I just got an anonymous source that said, oh, Jaylen Brown, he's unlikable, he's not marketable, he's arrogant, he's this and he's that. Okay, where did you hear that from? Who sent that? Who said that? Oh, I don't know. That's most likely what he said. And he sees nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the reason why I say he doesn't see anything wrong with that is going to segue to when I do the part 2 of this. Now, the part 2 is going to be a live. Now, the reason why I say it's going to be live is because in that live, I'm going to actually play the audio of the sit-down interview, if you want to call it that he had with Jaylen Brown when Jaylen came and confronted him about this. The reason why I didn't incorporate it into this video is because the audio itself is about 12 minutes long. And I know that I would have to do a lot of stop and go with that, and I can't do that in a pre-record. So make sure y'all tune in for part 2, which is going to be a live, which of course will most likely fall. It'll either be a midday or 6 p.m. It all depends on if I'm busy that day or not. But yeah, either way, Stephen A. Smith, this man is absolute trash.